Hey guys, Six Speeds and Sceneries here. How's it going? So, previous video y'all saw, I got the 350, got it tore down, whatnot, except for the crank rods. But yesterday, got around getting it cleaned out, took it outside, pressure washed it, engine and greaser, cleaned everything out real good. So today, I'm gonna throw in a time lapse of washing it down, pressure washing it and whatnot. So today, what I'm going to do is I'm going to clean out the pistons. As you can see, there's this bank of pistons. I've got that bank soaking. I can only do 4 at a time, but they're soaking in gas. Hopefully free up the wrist pins. The wrist pins were seized in there pretty good. But going to try and get those cleaned out today. And going to be jumping around a little bit. I'm going to be working on these Vortec heads. Did find a set of Vortec heads. Got them extremely cheap. So they were a bit crusty though, and by a bit I mean they was extremely crusty, but they'll work perfect. May have to get valve guides and valves put in them, or at the very least valve guides, but I'll find out for sure whenever I get them all tore down. I've got a plan or an idea from what I could tell with CompCam's 787-16 retainers and LS7 beehive springs. I should be able to run 520, 530 lift on these heads and be safe with the valve seals. Go and double check once I get everything cleaned out. Right now the springs don't fit on the spring pocket because there's a little bit of rust crust. So I'm gonna get around cleaning that out today, cleaning out the spring pockets so I can actually put the springs on and measure everything. But if that works out perfect. I'm not able to use my stock cam. It's got some pitting on it, and I don't feel comfortable using it, as I don't want to drive it 30, 40 miles and have to put a new cam in it, or new lifters and a new cam because pitted cam wiped something. So the cam's just gonna be decoration. Who knows, we might make something out of it. We'll find out later. But I'm gonna start probably with the pistons, start cleaning them out. I'm not looking forward to, no, I'll do the heads first. Let's start on the heads. I know that's gonna be the rough thing, so let's get started on that. Gonna get some music playing on the sound bar, set up a time lapse, and we'll start beating these heads apart. I wasn't going to do any kind of porting to these heads, but now I'm going to do a little bowl work. These heads have quite a bit of rust in the ports from sitting out in the weather, wrapped in plastic. So they're going to get a little porting. Not extreme like I am with the Pontiacs, but just a little bowl work. Nothing major. So let me show you what I done. The springs, let me show you the little trick I done to get the, if I can find the socket. Oh, here it is. So whenever you're dealing with heads that may have stuck keepers, keepers are stuck in the retainer or whatnot, little trick is to grab a socket that just fits outside the little ridge and just smack it with a hammer, because you're putting pressure on the retainer and if you got the heads up against the ground, or if they're stuck, like in this case, excuse me, whenever you put pressure on that, hit it with a hammer, the shock will usually break the keeper free from the valve or the retainer. So that's just a little trick, handy for whenever you're dealing with heads that's got stuck valves or stuck keepers. I'm hoping the guides are good. I tried to put a valve in a couple guide holes, but they're a little crusty. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and port them, get all that work done. Then I'm going to wash them real good and try and wash any of the crud out of the guide holes. Then I'm going to clean up all these valves. I've got another set of Vortec valves somewhere from those heads. One of them was cracked. The other is good. I already ported them. But I've got a set of valves for them somewhere. I just have to find them. I don't know if these are the same as like small, like 305 heads or whatnot. But if they are, I've got a set of valves from the 305 output heads I was going to sell. I've got all kinds of small block Chevy parts. They're scattered everywhere. So I'm going to go ahead and start porting these. Nothing insane. What I was doing, if y'all noticed, I did use a little sandpaper bit. I was going around the spring pockets, the outer or inner spring retainer pocket, because these LS7 valve springs I've got, they fit, but they're just a little tight where the heads are a little rusty. These should fit and should enable me to run hopefully about 520, 530 lift cam and still have plenty of clearance between the bottom of the retainer and the valve seal. But I just want to make sure these retainers are the CompCam 787-16 and these springs are just GM LS7, blue or yellow springs. These are just ain't painted. I've got a set over there that are, but hey, these was my spares. My 350 that I had in my Camaro, I didn't account for the shims underneath the springs whenever I done all my measuring, because they're aluminum heads and you have to have the shims so that it doesn't mar up the aluminum. So I didn't account for that, and that little not accounting broke quite a few springs and a few retainers. So these are just my extras that I bought whenever I put the 1.5 ratio rockers back on it, so it didn't encounter coil bind. And yeah, these spares are coming in handy because now I'm using them to measure, so I know what to buy. So anyway, let's get into porting it. I gotta move some of this stuff around so I can get back to my table so I can work on porting it. I'll set up a little time lapse. I promise you I'm not going ham on them. I'm just going to clean up the casting ridges where the factory drilled the valve slots, valve seats. So I'm not doing anything major to them. I've already showed y'all what I'm doing with the Pontiacs. I'm doing practically the same thing, except for these ain't got any casting flash in them really. Just rust. Last couple days, we're rebuilding a small block Chevy. So let's give you an update of what's going on. So got the Buick 455 out. No hassle at all, except for every bit of it fought me the whole way. But it's now over there, settling in the corner. So, you know, I'll tear into it. Maybe next month, maybe next week, who knows. After I get this car on the road, of course, I'll tear into it. Let's see what's going on with it. See if a wrist pin's knocking or what's going on with it. You know, maybe one day that motor might find its way back in this car, but for right now, smell like Chevy. So, I've got a old block. Now, it could be saved, but for right now, just bare block. Got it set in there. We're going to mock everything up. You know, as you can see, I've got a ton of room. I mean, a ton of room now. So, starting with the Turbo 400 back here, you know, we went through it. We rebuilt it, put a shift kit in it, Transgo, like 1.2 Turbo 400 shift kit. Should be good to go. So, I found an adapter plate that I had ordered a few years ago for a previous project of mine. It had nuts on it, welded on from the factory. We just sliced those little suckers off and bolted it up. Not every bolt hole lines up. Pontiac has got, or Buick owns Pontiac has got one bolt hole right there that doesn't line up, but Chevy, you know, you can still get a bolt hole right there or bolt in it. So the Pontiac side only has 4 bolts holding it in, 2 directly to the block and 2 that just is to the plate. Then the Chevy has 4. 5, yeah, 4. 4 as well. But what I'll do is I'll take that the Pontiac or the BOP Turbo 400, shave it down to where I can get a bolt in to the top right there, hopefully. Maybe not. We'll figure it out. But what I'll do is I'll bolt the plate to the motor first, then set it in, then bolt it all up. If I remember right, if I recall right, the dowels hold most of the pressure from, you know, the motor and trans. And the bolts just pretty much keep it located, keep it from flexing and whatnot. So I did upgrade to grade 10 hardware. We'll see if that makes a difference or not. Worst comes to worst, it'll just maybe crack the case of the transmission, which is not good, but I mean, it could be worse. We've got another Turbo 400 back there. It's a Chevy Turbo 400, but it's my dad's, and I don't really want to take it from him. You know, we built this transmission. It went with this car. It held up to that Buick 455 just fine. So we're going to see if it'll hold up to a just little old Chevy 350 with a turbo. Hopefully it will. But now let's go on to the motor itself. You know, it did come supposedly from a running vehicle whenever the guy got it that I got it from. But it's sat out in the weather for a little while. It's got some, you know, little bit of a rust in there. Not much in the cylinders. Still good. It's got a slight little ring ridge, but I mean, we're not going for perfect here. We're going for running. And it should run. It should run pretty well. Now, it came with 193 heads, which is swirl port. Not very good. You know, they're good at what they was made to do, and that's produce a lot of low end torque and get a car down the road, which is fine. It's fine. So the Vortec heads that I got, I'm debating on going ahead and getting them fixed right and putting them on, or just waiting until later after Power Tour whenever I have the budget to do them right. You know, put guide plates in it, put screw in studs, you know, get them actually checked and maybe machine down the spring pockets, valve guides. Just whenever I can do them right. That's why I'm debating on in my head. That way, you know, I mean, they're not hard to change heads. I mean, you saw how much room's in that engine bay. there's no way that I'm going to be struggling to do that. Even with a turbo kit, I mean, unbolt the headers and just lay them to the side and just, I mean, you got plenty of room. So I'm debating on just going ahead, not worrying about these heads, just clean them up and slapping them back on it. I mean, I've got an intake over there. I could figure out how to get it to work. I mean, I know the center two bolt holes on each side is a different angle, and you have to get a little adapter to do that. I may have an intake around here somewhere that has that already. I did do this once before, but I mean, just to get it by as cheap as I can without spending a whole lot of money on getting these heads done, that's what I'm thinking. So that's up in the air of what I'm going to do about the heads, and depending on what heads I go with, depends on what cam I go with. So right now, all I'm working on is getting this motor, the short block back together. I've already got 4 of the pistons nice and clean. Now I'm going to work on the other 4, get them, all the carbon deposits out, get the rings broke off, and just clean it, get the wrist pins moving freely. Hopefully get the crank out tonight and just clean it all, put new crank bearings in it, put new rod bearings in, and start installing the pistons. Now, see, I've got a bunch of parts, water pump and complete rebuild kit, engine gasket kit, rings, bearings, oil pump, everything right here. So I've got a good start on what I can be working on. It's going to be a long night. I'm going to work for a couple hours. I just got off work, so going to work for a couple hours, hour and a half, something like that. Just work for a little bit. See what I can get done on this motor. I'll set up a time lapse, the deal, and let's see how far we get. Guys, I'm done for the night. It's 2 o'clock in the morning, so, well, 2:30. So I'm done. I'm gonna get some rest, but let me recap what all I got done. So first off, I got the final oil galley plug back in. I took them out so we could pressure wash inside the oil galleys, make sure everything was nice and clean, because it's all gunked up. So took that out, pressure washed it all out, as you've seen, or you will see, I don't know yet. But got those oil galley plugs back in, got some Teflon tape on it, so should hold pressure. We'll find out. But I did get the crank out. I can't get the one-piece rear main out because this stud, I've got a socket to fit it, but I can't get it in with a ratchet to get it out. So I'm gonna have to take this off the motor stand, engine stand tomorrow to get the rear one-piece rear main out, so I can clean it all out, put the new one-piece rear main in. Then I should be ready to start reassembling. All the main bearings look good. They look good. The crank looks good. Don't need to see no scores or anything on it. So not going to do anything to it. Just, maybe spray some brake clean on it, clean it, put it back in, put the main caps back on, torque it all down, spin it over a few times, make sure everything's nice and good. Just going to slap it back together, hope that everything works. It should. It won't be no problem. These motors left the factory pretty good. Stock bearings, stock crank. It should run just like it did stock. But I'll make sure that, everything spins freely, how it should. But anyway, that's what the plan is for tomorrow. Finish cleaning up the pistons. And then before I get the crank in, I can start gapping my rings. Because boost, turbo, gonna gap the rings, a few thousandths bigger than what they was stock. Just to be on the safe side, the cautious side of this. So that's the plan for tomorrow. As you can see, my dad was out here leveling in, getting it ready to weld in the mounts. We got a set of just small block Chevy frame mounts, small block Chevy motor mounts, the clamshell style. We're not going to bolt them in. It's too much hassle to try and get your arms up there. I think you have to even drop the springs on these cars to get your hand up there just to hold the nut. So we're just going to do the right thing. The same thing we did with the Buick. And just zzz it on. So should be good. It'll hold. No worries there. It's just getting it nice and level with this mock-up motor so that we can, play around with it. So that's the plan for tomorrow. We'll see how it goes. We'll see how everything works. Hopefully we get the motor done and settled and pull back out for tomorrow, because I still have to wire up a fuel pump for this, get the fuel pump installed. It's just a little inline fuel pump. I think it's capable of like 20 psi fuel pressure. Nothing major, but it will be plenty for what I'm doing. I mean, carburetors only take about 7 psi. So 7 psi plus any pound of boost that you add, you have to add that on top of your fuel pressure. So say I'm running 5 pounds of boost with 7 psi fuel pressure, I got up it to 12. It's nothing bad, nothing hard. I do have a boost reference fuel pressure regulator that I'm going to mount on the firewall. This was the return line or vapor line or whatever from the Pontiac 301. I've already bent it up for the firewall. What I'll do is I'll just probably drill a hole, self tapper it to the firewall. The fuel pressure regulator. Then I already have the fuel line return right there. I'll just have to run a quick little line up to the carburetor and I'll be done. So that'll be nice, out of the way. Don't have to worry about it. The main fuel line is right there in the frame rail right now. So that'll be something I have to work around, either pull it out of the frame rail and bend it up, or again, I could just reroute the whole thing, maybe cross over with the return line. I don't know. We'll figure it out. Have faith in me. We'll figure it out some way or another. So that's the plan. We'll get busy tomorrow. Anyway, that's it for tonight. Y'all have a good night.